Herbert Boyer and Stanley Cohen made the first genetically modified organism in 1973. They took a gene from a bacterium that provided resistance to antibiotic kanamycin, inserted it into a plasmid, and then induced other bacteria to incorporate the plasmid. Genetically modified organism, or GMO, is an animal, plant, or microbe whose DNA has been altered using genetic engineering techniques. For thousands of years, humans have used breeding methods to modify organisms. Corn, cattle, and even dogs has been selectively bred over generations to have a certain desired traits. Most of the GMO crops grown today were developed to help farmers prevent crop and food loss and control weeds. The three most common traits found in GMO crops are resistance to certain damaging insects, tolerance of certain herbicides used to control weeds. In 1973, biochemists Herbert Boyer and Stanley Cohen developed genetic engineering by inserting DNA from one bacteria into another. In 1982, FDA approves that the first consumer GMO product developed through genetic engineering human insulin to treat diabetes.
These are the present negative aspects or worst-case scenarios regarding genetically modified organisms and gene therapy. Biodiversity loss. The usage of some GM crops may have negative impacts on ecosystems of soil and water as well as non-target creatures. For example, a large portion of the monarch butterfly's habitat in North America has been destroyed due to the spread of genetically modified herbicide-tolerant soy and corn crops. The possibility of genetically modified organisms, food genes spreading to native plants and other crops through outcrossing. Second is negative impacts on the other animals and insects. Third is decrease in other plant species, resulting in a decline in biodiversity.
Yellow hat. Consider the positives or advantages of the situation or issue. Advantages of genetically modified organisms include the following. GMOs improve the quality of food that is cultivated. GMOs are simpler to grow. They increase the yield that a person can produce on their carrot plant. GMOs can be shipped to remote parts of the earth. GMO crops use fewer chemicals than other crops. GMOs can conserve water, soil, and energy. Importance of GMO. In the future, GMOs are likely to continue playing an important role in biomedical research. GMO foods may provide better nutrition and perhaps even engineered to contain medicinal compounds to enhance human health. If GMOs can be shown to both safe and helpful, consumer resistance to this product will most likely diminish. Advantages of gene therapy. Gene therapy has the perspective to eliminate and prevent hereditary diseases such as cystic fibrosis. It could possibly cure heart diseases, AIDS, and cancer. It may avoid the need for constant medication and extend life expectancy. Carriers of a genetic disorder may be able to produce offspring without the disorder. It enables scientists to have a better understanding of how genes work. Importance of gene therapy. In the future, genetic therapies may be used to prevent, treat, or cure certain inherited disorders such as cystic fibrosis and sickle cell disease. They also may be used to treat cancers or infections, including HIV.
White hat. By inserting a kanamycin-resistant gene into a plasmid in 1973, Boyer and Cohen produced the first genetically modified organism. Genetically modified organisms can be bacteria, plants, or animals. Selective breeding has altered organisms such as corn, cattle, and dogs throughout history. The goals of contemporary genetically modified crops are to reduce losses, manage weeds, and display qualities like herbicide and insect resistance. In 1973, Boyer and Cohen were instrumental in the development of genetic engineering. The first GMO product for consumers was approved by the FDA in 1982 and was human insulin made by genetic engineering
for the treatment of diabetes. Blue hat, the summary of all hats. Yellow hat, improved food quality, easier cultivation, higher yield, remote accessibility, less chemical use, and resource conservation are among benefits of genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. Their contributions to biomedical research, introduction of therapeutic chemicals, and improvement of nutrition are what make them significant. Gene therapy has the ability to stop genetic diseases, treat illnesses like cancer, AIDS, and heart disease, increase longevity, and shed light on how genes act. Future applications of this technology include the prevention, treatment, or cure of genetic diseases such as sickle cell disease, hemophilia, beta thalassemia, cystic fibrosis, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, cancer, and HIV infections.
Consider creative ideas that come from looking at the problem in a new way. The general agreement among scientists is that genetically engineered foods are no harmful than those produced using conventional methods. The main conclusion to be drawn from the efforts of more than 130 research projects, covering a period of more than 25 years of research and involving more than 500 independent research groups, is that biotechnology and in particular GMOs are not more risky than conventional plant breeding technologies. Genetic engineering is one of more recent technologies available to produce desired traits in plants and animals used for food, but it poses no health risks that cannot also arise from conventional breeding and other methods. This is stated on page 18 of the European Commission report, A Decade of EU-Funded GMO Research, More Techniques for Producing Novel Foods. Gene therapy. Consider creative ideas that come from looking at the problem in a new way. Genetic therapies could be employed in the future to treat, prevent, or cure inherited diseases like sickle cell disease, hemophilia, beta thalassemia, cystic fibrosis, and alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. They can also be used to treat infections such as HIV and cancers. Patients with liver congenital amaurosis, and uncommon hereditary disorder that causes blindness can now access FDA-approved genetic therapies. The FDA has approved CAR T-cell therapy external link for patients with blood cancer, including acute lymphoblastic leukemia, diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, and external link. Possible solution to the existing problem. Although they are still relatively new as medical treatments, genetic therapies have the potential to treat a wide range of disease. Some cancer, allergic reaction, and organ or tissue damage in the event of an injection are possible hazards. Genetic therapies are now far safer than recent developments. How can you help as an individual? You can suggest sustainability projects. The FDA has approved certain gene transfer therapies as clinical use in the US due to improved safety. Although genome editing is a much more recent technique than gene transfer, there have been a few clinical studies on the subject. Scholars continue to investigate the hazards. The HLBI, along with the other national institutes of health, does not conduct or support research on genome editing that targets humans, sperm, eggs, or embryos. The patient offspring would inherit this alteration, which might have unintended consequence. How can you help as an individual? You can suggest sustainability projects. Additionally, if labeling is made required, it's possible that retailers will stop carrying any goods that include genetically modified ingredients. Essentially, this is what took place in Europe. In Europe, anti-GMO activists frequently picketed of harassed stores that sold genetically modified organisms. According to statement made by a few of the movement's leaders, the removal of GMOs is their true objective. Possible solutions to the existing problem. It is not widely agreed upon how much labeling would cost, but there are other expenses to take into account besides the cost of simply labeling a package. A substantial expense could be incurred by food segregation from farm to grocery store, in addition to any necessary testing and regulatory framework for the label to have any real meaning. Since there is no protein or DNA is processed sugar, it is impossible to distinguish between sugar from GMO, sugar beets, and non-GMO sugar cane. Therefore, a system to track the crop from the farm to the processor will need to be in place. Many other than protein items, including high fructose corn syrup or corn, soybean, or cottonseed oil, will cause you comparable issues. In a similar vein, a mechanism to confirm that animals did not ingest GMOs would need to be in place if labeling of animal produce were required. Given that each state has its own set of requirements, the present state move to require labeling are unclear. Vermont, for instance, bans cheese and other animal products, including as milk, pork, and ice cream. The ancient method of collecting chymosin from cat stomach was replaced by employing genetically modified bacteria to create chymosin rannin, which is used to make over 90% of the cheese produced in the U.S. Genetically modified corn or soybeans are fed to most animals. How can you help as an individual? You can suggest sustainability projects. Additionally, if labeling is made required, it's possible that retailers will stop carrying any goods that include genetically modified ingredients. Essentially, this is what took place in Europe. In Europe, anti-GMO activists frequently picketed of harassed stores that sold genetically modified organisms. According to statement made by a few of the movement's leaders, the removal of GMOs is their true objective.